for Jesus, the Sadducees have jumped on board because now they hate him, and they start their murder plot. So as we read about Jesus and what he's doing on this day, he's got 30 days left, which I think is a big question for us, is if you had 30 days left, how would you live it? What would you do? At the same time, think about the disciples. Over the next 90 days, their lives are revolutionized. They watch these last 30 days of Jesus, and then guess what they see? They see the crucifixion. They witness the resurrection. For 40 more days beyond that, Jesus comes back and hangs out with them. Has breakfast. Or, they eat some dinner. They just kind of do their pal things together. He catches up with them while they're out fishing. Just all those sort of things for 40 days. Then comes the day of Pentecost, and boy, things really change from that point forward. As a matter of fact, these 90 days were so pivotal in their lives. Just think about this little tidbit. Fully 1/2 of the Gospels, as you take and you read the Gospels, do you realize that they thought so much about these 90 days that fully 1/2 of the Gospels is merely about these 90 days? And the majority of what they write is about his final week. So of the half of the Gospels that's dedicated to the final 90 days of Jesus, of this period, his final 30 days, his crucifixion, his resurrection, his appearances, and then finally the day of Pentecost, of fully the majority of that portion of Scripture is about 1 week. 1 week in the life of Jesus and in their lives. It transformed them. It revolutionized their thinking. And something happened that should happen to all of us. But with that in mind, let's enter into the story. Jesus is in trouble already. The Pharisees are out to get him. And so, as we start chapter 11, he already knows that his friend Lazarus is sick. That's even before word comes to him that Lazarus is sick. He knows. And he assures his disciples this is okay. They actually tell him, please, Jesus, don't go. Remember, there's some knotheads that are after you. They're going to hurt you, and we're really scared for you. They were probably scared for themselves as well, but they're really trying to keep Jesus from going to Bethany, which is just outside. You can climb the hill and look over the hill down towards Jerusalem. I mean, it's that close. And they really don't want him to go there. But he says, no, there's method to the madness. There's a plan here. He finally, before he even gets to Lazarus and his sisters, before he gets to the funeral, he even tells his disciples, oh, well, yeah, he's died, but that's okay. I'm going to resurrect him, and that's so you guys might believe. So it's a pretty interesting passage. Before we even get to where we are, verse 18, we're going to start there. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off. And many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary remained seated in the house. And can you see this? We already know a little bit about Martha. If you don't, let's fill you in. Martha is how to be kind. Martha is the type A personality. She's the micromanager. Martha, if you think, do you have any Marthas in church? Imagine a meeting, a ministry meeting, and you go in, and it's those personalities that really dominate the meeting. And it's pretty much their way or the highway. Do you know anybody like that? Well, their nickname is Martha, just so you know. And one of the things about micromanagers, and not to pick on women, because it's not just women. Let me tell you, men are micromanagers too. It's about It's about control. I have to be in control. And their thinking is kind of honest. A lot of times, the micromanagers, the type A personalities, they're very, very equipped to handle many different things. They can do a lot. They're very competent. But they live with a major fallacy. And their major fallacy is, it's not done right unless I do it. There's a variation of that, but that's really what they're saying. So you got it? That's Martha. So here's Martha. That's background before she even, here she is. She's running up to see Jesus. Because verse 21 says it all. Here's another thing that happens with everybody, but it also happens with those who love control. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Okay, another little bit of background. They're very good friends. And Jesus is very good friends with Lazarus. And then here's big sister Martha. And first thing out of her mouth is, I love you, Jesus, but it's your fault. Right? And if you think, well, let's pick on the type A's, let's pick on these micromanagers, we all come by it honest. We actually all do this. If you remember, there's another biblical personality who's the whole drama, human drama, starts off with one guy saying to Jesus, yeah, I ate the fruit, but it's your fault, God, because that woman you gave me, she caused me to do it. Does that sound familiar? His name was Adam. And all of us are descended from Adam and Eve, and so we come by it honest. You can pay attention to your kids, your teenagers, your 20-somethings. And what do? They blame someone else. Always. So here she is. Jesus, it's your fault. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. I want you to know, her world's about to be turned upside down. Remember, as we've studied before, when Jesus calms the storm, and he's walking on the Sea of Galilee, they're amazed that he has that sort of power. They say, look, what kind of man is this that he can speak to the winds and the winds command him. He can speak to the waves and the waves command him. Same sort of, what are we dealing with here? Same sort of thing is going to happen. So if you had been here, Lord, you would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Notice her answer. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. And Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? We've already had several of his I am statements. And he's been pretty profound. To the woman at the well, he said, I am living water. He's said, I am the bread of life. He's said, I am the light of the world. I mean, they're all pretty profound, but now he says, I am the resurrection and the life. Remember, as he said he was the light of the world, what does he do? He goes and he heals the man who's been born, who was born blind. Gives sight to him. Now he's going to do the same sort of profound, just amazing thing. So, verse 24, Martha said, I know that he will rise again on the resurrection on the last day. Hey, I've read the Bible. I've listened to these guys. Jesus, I know a resurrection's coming. Yeah, I'm going to see him again, but I'm really crying right now. You got it? I'm the resurrection and the life. Verse 27. She said to him, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world. Already the Pharisees had commanded that anybody who confessed Jesus to be the Christ would be thrown out of the synagogue. It's possible she's either already out of the synagogue, her family is, Lazarus is, because they're all talking like this, or she's on her way out. When she had said this, verse 28, She went and called her sister Mary, saying in private, "The teacher is here and is calling for you." And when she heard it, she rose quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw Mary rise quickly and go out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Now when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet, saying to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Does it sound like maybe she's influenced, at least by her sister? And I would say she's probably been influenced by someone else in her life. We all do this, by the way. So, I picked on the type A's earlier, but the truth is we're all like this. Because this is sweet little Mary, right? And she's saying, "Jesus, if only you had been here." Verse 33. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in the spirit and greatly troubled. We struggle with how to translate that. This grief, this feeling that Jesus is going through is deep and profound. I mean, it's a moving of the spirit. What happens with Jesus next is remarkable. He's looking at them and they're all crying. He's looking at Mary and she's crying. And he said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." And in verse 35, the shortest verse in the English Bible, Jesus wept. And it's not just, no, the Greek here is a deep sobbing, this just wrenching sort of cry. This emotive, just, horrible cry. And it's Jesus. It's not Mary, it's not Martha, it's not the professional weepers, it's not, no, this is Jesus and he's weeping. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them, and I love the buts, I told you guys in the first hour, I'd love to play a little video every time the buts come up. But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave and a stone lay against it. And Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, but by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead 4 days." King James says, "He stinketh." He stinketh. Don't you love 400-year-old, 500-year-old English? Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. And Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me. But I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The man who had died came out, his hands and his feet bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped with a cloth. And Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." Many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary, had seen what he did, believed in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. So the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered the council and said, "What are we to do? For this man performs many signs." And the murder plot starts. Now, a little background. This is not the first time Jesus has raised someone from the dead. This one is different, one major feature. The other times that Jesus has raised someone, it's been like an immediate death, and then he raises them from the dead. And so even those who were on board with him, who understood him, likely they had in the back of their mind, well, it's a fresh revival. Maybe the person just passed out. Maybe something like that happened. The most extensive case was a young man. Remember, he raises the widow whose only son dies, and they're carrying him out on a stretcher. So a little bit of time had passed in that situation. But keep in mind that Jewish people and Orthodox, the very, very Hasidic Jews, still do this today. They bury you on the same day that you die. But Lazarus is now how many days dead? 4 days. It's plenty of time. Martha she wasn't being gross. It's not like today we watch those zombie movies. Please don't tell me you watch The Walking Dead. You watch The Walking Dead. You look like a Walking Dead sort of fan. I'm not saying you are a Walking Dead. I'm just saying that. Yeah. So we're all into zombies and these dead people that eat brains and all that stuff. No. In their day, they have put him in the tomb. They've bound him with these ointments and these salves. And it's all to keep the stink down, because there's no embalming. There's no science like we have today. They didn't vacate his body of the blood and pump it full of chemicals that keep the body around. It's not like today. There's plenty of time in 4 days for that body, let me be gross, for that body to be rotted. I mean, flesh, the skin is starting to bubble and slough off. Oh, you see, you laugh at that. That wasn't supposed to be funny. I mean, it's disgusting. I want you to see it's supposed to be disgusting. And Jesus says, Lazarus, come forth. This is a big deal. This is, wow. But I also want you to know something else. Everything Jesus said to them, I am the resurrection and the life, wasn't just because of Lazarus. He was prepping them for 33 days from that point. Because that's when he really proved who he was. Because then when on that Sunday morning when that stone is rolled away and that tomb is empty, then you really understand what he means by I am the resurrection and the life. Death has no power over me. It's one thing to raise a little 12-year-old girl from the dead. It's one thing to raise a young man who's the only son of a widow from the dead while he's on his carriers. They're carrying him out to bury him. It's one thing even to raise a guy who's 4 days dead, but it's quite another thing. It's quite another feat. It's quite another miracle for you to walk out of a tomb and no one has done it to you. Rather, it's the power of being the Son of God. So why do the disciples write so much about these 90 days? And remember, they had been with him for 3.5 years. They had seen everything. They had seen the little 12-year-old girl raised. They had seen the young man raised. They had seen the man born blind have his sight not restored, but given to him for the first time in his life. They had seen the lame walk. They had seen people with withered arms and withered hands stretch forth their hands by the command of Jesus. They had seen those things happen. They had seen him calm the storm. They had seen all these things, but this resurrection, this thing that we're getting ready for in just a couple of months, this resurrection of Jesus was so vastly different. And then he hangs around with them for 40 days. For 90 days of their lives, everything was turned upside down. So here's my big question. What if? In all of this, for us control freaks, there's a big what if. What does it say to us? What if someone else is in control? I what Jesus did? All of a sudden, in a profound sort of way, to all these control freaks, and by the way, we're all a little bit control freak. Yeah, I'll tell you a little story on this. I had an unusual education. I really think I was a guinea pig. Because they started to snatch us out of, probably about the time you were starting to teach at Rock Champetson. 62. Oh, yeah. No, it's a little bit after that. I'm 5th grade. They pull us out of 5th grade and they start to give us college materials to read and teach us speed reading. Eventually I got up to about 2,000 words a minute. And then we had, for those who know what honors studies are, by the time I got to high school, we had Phase Q. And, but I really think I was just a guinea pig. Did they guinea pig in Brevard County at that time? Mm-hmm. Yeah, see? So this is what it looks like. This is what experimentation does to you. So anyway, unusual education. I've been reading and studying all my life. And I'm a bit of a science geek, just a little bit. I mean, I love science. I've discovered something in my 60-plus years now. You know, man really does not know very much. And I said it last week, and I really want you to understand this. If anybody says to you that they have an answer, they are wrong. In all the knowledge, all the cumulative amount of knowledge that humanity has, no one has figured it out. And by the way, as much control as we think we have or we should have, the truth is, and keep this in mind, we were never meant to be in control. Ever. What if we were never meant to be in control? What if we were supposed to walk in a garden with the Creator? And we were supposed to diddy-bop around. And when I say diddy-bop, I mean there were no clothes. Things would have been quite different. And by the way, I'm thinking because of the fall, we would look differently without clothes. So it wouldn't be quite so embarrassing, right? But we were made for somebody else to be in charge. So what if you're really not in control? And the biggest thing is this thing that we just cannot face. I mean, here's Mary and Martha, and they're going to Jesus, and the one thing that could not be controlled was death. They had seen him raise other people from the dead, but that one thing, he's 4 days dead, his body is rotting away. There's no way. And then Jesus proves he's got control. So what if we're supposed to let go of all the things we try and control and just follow him? Here's another one. What if you don't have all the answers? Back to my education story. What if we're not even supposed to have all the answers? What if we're supposed to just tell people, hey, I don't have all the answers, and I don't pretend to have all the answers, and I tell you the truth, I don't really want to have all the answers. Somebody else is in charge of that. And finally, what if you had to live as if your time were limited? So back to these verses. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live, and everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? You have the gospel right there. Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God, our Lord and our Savior, he is the resurrection and the life. That's all people really need to hear from us. We just need to tell the story. But what if? What if we've got a mission in that? Matthew 28, 19 and 20. Go therefore. And by the way, there's only one verb here, and it's make disciples. Everything else is a participle tied to the disciple. So here's the three participles. Go. So while you're going, you're going to make disciples, that's the verb, of all nations. Here's the second participle. You baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's how you make a disciple. But, and here's the most important, this is the great omission of the Great Commission. We tend to leave this part out. Teaching them to obey or to observe all that I have commanded you. Three participles tied to the verb. Make disciples. How do you do it? You do it. You go. You baptize them. And you teach them to obey everything that Jesus has told them. And behold, and notice the big I am. I am with you always to the end of the age. But what if, after 2,000 years of human history, man, we've got to analyze everything. We've got to tear it apart. We've got to control this thing called the gospel. We've got to have every single word. We beat the life out of it. Just remember 2,000 years ago, after just those 90 days, an itinerant bunch of preachers, fishermen, tax collectors, rejects, prostitutes, a woman who was mad, not angry, mad, crazy, possessed by demons, they turned their world upside down. And they didn't have giant volumes of theology books. They didn't have tons of doctrine. They had just one thing, and here Peter says it. Peter, talk about type A personality, the guy who wanted to be in control. But in your hearts, honor Christ as the Lord, as holy. Always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope. Don't give them all the answers. You don't need all the answers. You know what you need to do? This is what Jesus did for me. This is what I believe. This is my faith. So give them a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect, having a good conscience, so that you, when you are slandered, those who revile your good behavior in Christ may be put to shame. By the way, with those words, does that sound like the way the church acts a lot of times? No. Jesus Christ died for you. And he proved he's in control by resurrecting. That's our mission. That's the gospel. So what if all we have to do is be active in sharing it? Let's stand and pray. Father, I don't want to be in control. Forgive me for being the human that I am, and I just want to be in control. But Yahweh, Father, Creator God, I just need to give back to you what I've tried to wrest from your hands. I give back to you control. So I ask, Father, that you just say go, and I will go. And I ask that for all of us. Father, may we be good followers. And forgive us when we try to be dictators. I just pray that the lesson of this young man being shot at the age of 21 on his first day of internship haunts us. We are finite human beings, and we have no control in this life. You were supposed to have it, and we just ask, Father, we allow you to have it. So let us be your hands, your feet, your eyes. May we be your ambassadors. May we just proclaim your name wherever we are. We give you thanks. In Jesus' name, amen.